The contents of Want My Baby Back, this media, and anything created or shared by Want My Baby Back LLC are opinions not to defame or make any accusations. Some names are pseudonyms. Please pardon the typos, slurred or misspoken words, and other errors. This content was created in grief. Copyright Want My Baby Back LLC. All rights reserved.
Day 31. Whenever together with different friends from distinct parts of my life, I have the expectation that they will instantly start engaging in conversations based on their little-known mutual interests, followed by lifelong inseparable friendship. I once introduced two friends with an 8-paragraph email that could have been summarized as, "Let's meet for tea in Lake Forest whenever your children's schedules allow." Instead, I pitched both of them to each other like a matchmaker trying to get them to commit to an arranged marriage. And I'll just, as a brief aside, say, Florence and Jen, I still think you're both awesome and you'd still make great friends. Last night, I was blessed to have several dear friends, both from inside the Cherry Preschool alumni community and outside it, attend their annual fundraiser with me. Given that this was my first social venture out of the house, I eschewed any attempts at conversational lubrication. Nevertheless, they survived beautifully. Friendship is an incredibly powerful thing. Seeing my friends last night was a jolting reminder of how smart, mighty, kind, generous, and thoughtful they are. They are physical evidence of what you can get through if you keep on swinging. I'm so fortunate to have them in my life. I love them so much. The Cherry Preschool alumni annual fundraiser was stunning. It is impossible to do justice when honoring Rhonda Cohen. Rhonda built an inclusion program that helped thousands of families with special needs learn what's possible. She transformed 98% of the school student body who'd have special needs into inclusion advocates. Typical kids at Cherry grow up to spend their lives accepting that people are different and that is normal. In fact, that is what makes our world so great. The Cherry Preschool team politely saved my friends a table at the front so we could see Rhonda Cohen and her family. I wanted to spend the entire program hugging her and thanking her, but as everyone else felt the same way, I restrained myself. Cherry's staff graciously started the evening's video with a dedication to the memory of my little Constance. In the inclusion photo, she had climbed onto the dining room table. In the included photo, she had climbed onto the dining room table because she had thought a perfectly round pumpkin was a ball, and after discovering its weight, she laughed riotously. The video featured kids like Constance talking about their lives years after leaving Cherry. A boy explained how his early experiences at Cherry Preschool's inclusion program brought him to his current studies at Northwestern. I cried until I felt like Michigan. My bones felt crushed by a speeding road roller. Like a Victorian novel, I went home and took to my bed. Day 32. While dropping off a carload of my daughter's bedding and athletic equipment at the Goodwill Donation Center, I noticed a car closely following me. The driver followed for a few miles, as close to my bumper as he could be. Men do this to me with bizarre frequency. It might be because I drive an expensive car. It wasn't expensive to me, but they don't know that. It could be caused by some combination of our culture and their inadequate sexual performance. Whatever the reason, this happens to me. Oh, that was a burn. Unlike Constance, I'm not particularly attractive, nor am I a beauty now. Unlike Constance, I was not a particularly attractive child, nor am I a beauty now. That kind of attention isn't really about the person receiving it. It's about the aggression and issues of the person giving it. Sometimes the tailgating will end with them asking for my number at a light, and sometimes yelling a compliment as often about my car as me. The scariest incidents, like those today, are when they follow me all the way to my destination and then get out of the car to talk to me. Historically, I would use my politest words and most respectful tone to decline. I would say something like, "Oh, thank you so much. I'm flattered. Unfortunately, I'm in a relationship. Thank you, though," as I walk away. which really means, please don't murder me. Once, as a teenager, a guy helped me out of the McDonald's restaurant on the Skyway. Once, as a teenager, a guy asked me out at the McDonald's restaurant on the Skyway Bridge between Chicago and Indiana. When I declined, he grabbed my hand and started loudly praying for me. It was nearly as scary as the old man who came up to me when I was alone in an aisle at Meijer supermarket at age 10 and said, "Do you have any idea how beautiful you are?" I replied, "Yeah," as I ran to my mother and brothers. No cereal is worth an abduction. Ugh. Since Constance's passing, I don't have the energy for self-preservation. Oh man, I still don't. I'm untethered. True, still true. I'm not afraid of death. I'm dangerous. While tailgating on the way to Goodwill, I took the man's measure and thought, I like my odds. Day 33. When people ask me about my future, it's like they're asking me to solve for X in some long alphanumeric puzzle. They query, where will you live? And it's as if I see Japanese characters. It might as well be embellished hashtags to me. They inquire, how will you meet your financial obligations? And I'm as puzzled as if they asked me to describe a dream my dog had. How could I know? They ask, will you have another child or another relationship? And my mind goes blank, as if I were attempting to calculate both winning lotto numbers and the odds of winning. I don't know. What's more, I don't care. My friends keep telling me I will get through this. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. I won't get past this. Constance isn't here anymore, so nothing else really matters. Nothing else ever will. Day 32. One of our places of worship has a monthly newsletter. Below is an excerpt of the April publication of this year that mentions Constance. I like that it talks about my darling daughter as a person, not as an idea, an event, or a diagnosis. From the April monthly newsletter. We were stunned with sadness over the loss of Constance on March 15th. Constance was a member and a bright spot in our place of worship. She enjoyed playing in our backyard on the swing set and seemed happy here. We enjoyed watching as she started to learn to verbalize as well as her interactions with her service dog. She brought many smiles to our faces. When a child dies, the whole universe seems turned upside down. We struggled to make sense of it all. We can only reach out to her grieving parents and listen to their stories. Constance was 8 years old. Several members attended her memorial on March 18th. In lieu of flowers, donations in her name can be given to Cyberattack or Cherry Preschool's inclusion program. Here is a video of Constance at the place of worship playing their piano.
jouer.
Is that how you do it? Good job, high five. Day 35. As a parent, you think you can overcome anything. Your skin thickens with the scars of your children's injuries. You think you'll be as tough as your child needs you to be. You believe you can become like a crocodile. You are confident you could live through anything, even an asteroid. Then your child dies suddenly, and you realize you are actually a trilobite the entire time, a fossil, extinct. Parenthood is supposed to be a tenured position. What does a professor do without their university? Parenthood is meant to be a life appointment for which no intemperate opinion or change in tide can separate you. What does a justice do without their bench? Day 36. At the hospital, my mom took Constance's fingerprints for memorial purposes. I can't imagine the breathtaking pain it caused her to put those fingerprints after Constance passed. I gave my mother all the terrible jobs. including notifying Constance's caregivers and family. Like a person whose pickup truck is used monthly by friends for moving things. My mother's strength puts her in the position of being asked to do exceptional feats of will. This is unfair but true. Luckily, I don't have any practical skills, and as a result, I'm never asked to do anything, except maybe butt out. I scanned Constance's fingerprint and sent the image to a jeweler. They put it on a heart necklace for me. I am looking forward to giving my mother a necklace with Constance's fingerprint engraved on it for my mother's birthday. On the back of my fingerprint necklace is a miniaturized handwritten note. Last summer, all the kids at day camp were asked to write a note to someone. Constance picked me and filled the entire page with, "Dear Mom, love, Constance." I hung the note in a prideful plaque on my bedroom wall. Writing was her Everest, and when she reached the top, she picked me to write a note to. That note is now also miniaturized on the other side of the heart necklace. I've never been a person who wears jewelry. I haven't worn a ring in years. Constance didn't like jewelry either. It's just another thing to worry about losing at the pool or the beach. Still, I like this charm. I like thinking of my talented, thoughtful little girl. She is still my heart. She always will be. Day 38. Constance's father used to muse about my incredible job I do sewing simple projects. He would ask, "How do you know how to replace a zipper?" And I'd reply, "I'm from Indiana." Bemused, he would shake his head as if I performed a minor miracle. There was no end to the innumerable differences between he and I. My school system made all 13 and 14-year-olds take several practical classes, including sewing. My sewing teacher was so beautiful, I simply couldn't believe she wasn't a model or actress. I bumped into her at my brother's graduation, and she asked if I remembered her. She was still so gorgeous. I wondered deep down if our conversation was being filmed. I wildly overacted, as I do. It's been a long time since my junior high sewing class. My skills have clearly atrophied. Still, I got a bee in my bonnet to memorialize Constance with her clothes. I made myself a Muppet because I'm soft and snarky. I immediately put it on a high closet shelf so Constance's dog Otis wouldn't eat it. The shirt I made it out of was one I bought Constance at the Portland airport on the way home from the trip on which we got Otis. All the details, even the button eyes on the back to the black smile, are from clothes I got her. I created Constance's father a stuffed dog out of a thermal he got Constance. He loves dogs. He talks about his childhood dogs as if they're star-crossed lovers. The fabric was all wrong for a stuffed animal, however, it was the only clothes he'd ever bought her. I wouldn't let him buy her so much as socks because his taste in girl clothes was so poor it bordered on child abuse. However, the thermal could be put under the cute clothes I got her. My sewing machine broke, so the little teddy bear my mom requested turned out a bit odd. When the new machine arrives, I'll create a replacement. My plan is to make myself a large teddy bear out of Constance's fluffy gym robe when the special order of large blue button eyes comes in. Constance had blue eyes. I'm considering making some reusable grocery bags and throw pillows out of the other pieces. I will continue to tag each item with Constance's birthday on it. Whatever is left, I will give it to Goodwill. I can't bring myself to give her clothes to her cousins. Seeing her cousins wear Constance's clothes would be like having lobster claws snip off parts of my skin, a thimbleful at a time. Day 39. What would you do if you had no obligation? Where would you go if you weren't needed or maybe even wanted anywhere? Who would you be if you shook the Etch-a-Sketch and started over? I can't trust my memory of what I enjoyed and don't. Even the most mundane chores are polished with a bronzer of choice and made beautiful. Imagining the person I was before Constance's birth is non-formative. I was still in school, and time would have certainly changed me. Parents talk about the transformative nature of birth with their first child and the awe and wonder. It's a mere shadow of the changes that come with losing a child. In addition to the loving parental care that I happily provided Constance, I spent much of the last 8 years advocating for her. Being a special needs parent meant I altered and folded myself over and over again like origami, and it changed me. Even if I could unfold, I would be forever crinkled, marked, forever damaged. Day 40. One of the members of WantMyBabyBack.com shared that a way she got through a personal loss was by taking breaks to go to the movies alone. I decided to try it. I went to see a movie called A Silent Place because one of the leads is a differently abled person, and few films show that kind of diversity, so I wanted to support it. One of the film's actors is a young woman with a hearing impairment. I hate horror movies, but I decided I could make it through this one with frequent bathroom breaks and an unbelievably large bucket of popcorn. Spoiler alert, please go forward about 2 minutes to avoid the movie A Quiet Place being spoiled. Real life is a great preparation for the anxiety of a world with monsters. Unfortunately, I could not handle the death of a child or Emily Blunt talking about her grief. Emily wept silently. I wept slightly louder. For the rest of the film, tears streamed down my face and my heart raced. Fellow theater goers checked in on me to ensure I was all right. One even thoughtfully followed me to the bathroom. I didn't tell them about Constance. I just said it was an intense movie. They concurred. Had I known this was a film that children would die in, I would have never gone to see it. It is the naive belief that things will work out for children that made me brave enough to see this movie and have a child of my own. Once again, I eagerly rushed home so I could completely collapse in snap bubble tears. Day 41. Constance's father bought her a few fish. They were tiny 50-cent goldfish. I believe they were sold primarily as inventory that would be food for larger fish. Eventually, they grew to over 5 inches, including at the house. I had to decide how to get rid of them. I do not know if goldfish are aware of their mortality. I often think life would be a lot easier if people weren't. Still, I presume the goldfish would rather be alive than not, so flushing them seemed unconscionable. This mirrors the logic that turned me into a vegetarian. I always presumed Constance would be a vegetarian too. When she was little, her food allergies limited her to such an extreme extent that I prepared meat for her to eat. She would pick up pieces of bacon, like potato chips, and happily pop them into her mouth while reading the children's book, That's Why We Don't Eat Animals. As she grew out of those allergies, I put her back on a vegetarian diet. A year into eating vegetarian again, we went to a breakfast buffet at Lamb's Farm Cafe. She helped herself to a towering plate of bacon and happily danced around, smiling while eating it. I called the pet store and said, "My daughter died. I'm selling our house. I don't know what to do with her goldfish. I know you have a return policy, but it was years ago and they're really big now." After a beat, the guy said, "We can get someone to adopt them, just bring them in tomorrow." The next day, I took the fish to the store. The sales associate asked why we're returning the fish. I can't imagine being someone who'd return 50-cent goldfish for the money. What do you expect from your goldfish that you didn't get? More bubbles? Less eating a fish flake? My daughter died of a brain tumor suddenly, and these were her fish. I initially thought they would die, but they just kept living, and she didn't so. I was told you could get someone to adopt them. Is that right? The sales associate looked like I had thrown the fish, the water, and all in his face. He apologized for my loss, took the fish and put them in a fish tank of their own, and asked if there was anything else he could do to help. I asked him questions about dog behavior related to Constance's dog, Otis, thanked him, and left. I took the fish tank to Goodwill. I didn't need it anymore. It had been sitting on a table that I'd mosaicked with the quote, "I am in the world to change the world." No longer my primary framework, I donated that table to Goodwill too. I'm having a bad day. There's something about staying in an empty house, missing your kid, that just really hurts your heart. I want to curl into a ball and go to sleep forever. I have to get out of this house. Bereavement cards continue to arrive. I wonder what they'd say if they revealed what the sender was actually thinking. They'd probably all say some version of, "I'm sorry this is happening to you, but I'm also glad it isn't happening to me." Day 43. My mom called to check on me. She tried a few go-to things you say to someone who's in total despair. When those didn't work, she said, "Well, it's never going to get any better. Your daughter's always going to be dead. You're always going to be upset about it. You might as well get on with it," meaning life. There was a pregnant pause, and then we both burst out laughing. And she said, "How's that for a pep talk? You're always going to feel bad, so get on with it." I guess my mom uses some version of that speech to motivate herself or her subordinates to do their jobs. I don't know. She sees my current job as just trying to live. What is the point of life? To love someone then lose them? It seems so cruel. Day 44. This weekend will be a hard one. I'll post the details tomorrow. Right now, I'm just focusing all of my energy on getting dressed and not crying anymore. Day 45. My life is a Hank Williams song. I lost my baby, my house, and now my dog. I need to start drinking bourbon. Otis, my daughter's service dog, moved out this weekend. He's going to live with and assist another child with autism. Otis can save lives. There's a 2-year-long waiting list for a service dog with his skills. Hence, the guilt of holding Otis and counteracting the comfort I get from his presence. More to the point, I no longer have a home. I do not have a place to keep him. When I have a home and a yard again, Autism Service Dogs of America said they will give me a dog that failed the program. It will likely be from the same or similar breeds as Otis. We all have dim relations and they need to live somewhere too. In the security line at the airport, an entitled jerk started grilling me about what service dogs provide people with autism. Some people seem to believe their unsolicited inquisitions are an appropriate form of public policing. They are not. Most of the time, they are asked in front of a person with special needs. Talking about a person with a disability in front of them, but not to them, is never acceptable. It is dehumanizing and sets my tuchus ablaze. When Mr. Socks and Sandals asked in a tone of condemnation what exactly service dogs do for people with autism, I said, "Some people with serious challenges as a result of an autism spectrum disorder have eloping behaviors where they walk into traffic, drown in bodies of water, or get lost. The service dog prevents that, as well as helps with other behaviors." In a tone of skepticism, he said, "They get lost?" I repeated my statement in a tone so sharp the bodybuilder in front of us turned around to see if he was going to need to tag in. The inquisitor quipped, "Right." I'm happy to discuss my daughter's service dog with those responsible for the safety of all travelers. Everyone else should just Google their questions. When I reached the end of the line, I had to loiter while Otis's dog's food went through an extra test. Some Japanese tourists stopped to take my and Otis's picture. I snapped, "Don't take my picture. That's not appropriate." Then they disappeared like doves fleeing Trafalgar Square. A security officer wondered aloud if it was the 6-foot-tall blonde in 5-inch heels or the white dog that they thought was exotic enough to necessitate a photo. In the 45 days since Constance's passing, Otis's grief and boredom has led to some social challenges. For example, he was sneaking under the fence and peeing in the yards of other dogs. This made the other dogs furious. They would become deranged, barking at him, and he would sit happily, listening with a serene smile while wagging his tail in the sanctuary of our yard. Neighbors would apologize to me, presuming their dogs weren't to blame, as Otis had never been caught in the act or barked back. Otis was a mischievous dog when he was off duty. Well, off duty and grieving. Constance loved Otis from the moment she got him. The first evening they were together, he jumped onto the hotel bed and she cuddled and slept with him. She was so proud of him and loved him and the compliments people gave her about her well-trained, handsome dog. This with Laurel was bittersweet. Otis and I were beaming with joy at sight of Laurel. She's a kind, intelligent, compassionate person that seems to redeem your faith in humanity and makes you wish for a cloning machine. Laurel has built and run a fantastic organization. I admire all she's done with her life. I do not doubt that in the brief period when Otis will be staying with Laurel before he is placed with his new family, he will be surrounded by love and kindness. Further, I know Laurel will ensure the new family is trained to provide Otis with care and love. Despite my knowledge of Otis's happiness and security, I will still miss him. I'm alone in a vacant house, missing Otis, missing Constance, and so lonely I could cry. Day 46. With Constance's things all out of the house, I thought my somber trips to the Goodwill Donation Center were long behind me. It was with reverence that I took Otis's dog, bed, dishes, coat, and other belongings to Goodwill. I know he's happily settled with Laurel in Portland. He does not need, nor did he ever really need, the dog boots we bought him. I miss his face greeting me when I get home. I miss him investigating noises so I don't have to. I miss the enthusiastic way he greeted me each morning. I miss how he could tell between the good postal carrier, i.e. the one that brings dog bones, and the bad postal carrier, i.e. the one that only comes bearing mail. Above all, I miss how happy he made Constance. Day 47. My go-to joke when cashiers would ask me if I wanted to save 3% by signing up for a credit card was, I can't. If I get another credit card, I'll have to get a new husband, and it'll be a net loss. This made the cashiers laugh basically 100% of the time. Post-Constance, I went to the store because I found myself with a half a handle of vodka and only water to mix it with. I can't drink vodka and water like some person with a problem. Despite the late hour, I got in my car and drove to the store. While checking out, the cashier, who had worked there for at least as long as I lived in Highland Park, asked me if I wanted to save 3% by signing up for a credit card. First, I said no, not at all. Then I leaned in and whispered to her, co-conspiratorially, do you ever get sick of asking people that? She smiled. I continued, a cousin of mine worked in Target in Michigan, and he got so sick of the pressure of asking people that he'd only ask when his manager was around. And then he'd loudly project his voice as if yelling across the store. I think he lasted a month. Apparently, this story was just the grease that the jar needed because she opened up and said that they were forced to ask everyone. She said that they were under so much pressure, she was sure the managers got bonuses based on it. Shockingly, she reported that the people a level above her were forced to write 3 reasons why they didn't make their credit card sign-up goal every time they didn't make it. What? Isn't the largest factor regarding signups whether customers are new to the area with the store? That's ridiculous, I said. I was incredulous. She confirmed the assertion and said that when a new development went up in Glenview, they beat them, and then it was a whole big thing. As our conversation continued, she ran out of beverages to scan and just started scanning coupons from her coupon binder from front to back. The teenagers behind me in the queue seemed incredulous at the long length of our dialogue. There were other lines open and self-checkout was open, so I was unmoved. Well, what do you do to survive? I asked, both curious and concerned. She revealed all. Well, we have our friends who don't care about their credit go through our lines at the end of every month. The cashiers also go through each other's lines at the end of the month. If you're new, you'll get 3 people who immediately befriend you and try to pressure you into going through their lines first. I summarized. So you figure out how to work the system to survive. I guess it's like that at every job to some extent. Yeah, she agreed. Well, good for you, I said, finally leaving. While walking to the car, I thought about how different I am now. Definitely not better, but significantly different. Returning home, I drank 2 flavored waters, sans vodka, and wrote this entry. Time to climb into bed with the book and dressed in my fancy pajamas for the first time since Constance passed. Day 48. One difficult aspect of moving out of my house was going through Constance's things. This included disassembling her bed and taking it to Goodwill. My mother took it apart and helped me put it in the car. She felt it was too worn to be donated. This was largely because of the reinforced 2x4s I'd added to the frame to make it stand up to Constance's jumping on it. People with sensory processing challenges, such as sensory processing disorder or autism spectrum disorders, frequently find clothes itchy and uncomfortable. Itchy skin is also a side effect of the anti-seizure medication Constance was on. She was particularly annoyed by her clothes, which her father insisted she always wear, and which I insisted she wear when she wasn't in her bedroom. One day, Constance's father came home and, seeing me sitting on the living room floor, asked where Constance was. Jumping on her bed, I replied. This was yet another activity that he forbade, but I indulged. Disappointed, he knowingly questioned, not naked again. Like mother, like daughter, I replied. I unsuccessfully use humor to distract from how annoying I am. Definitely unsuccessfully. My mom and I put the bed in the dumpster at the storage facility where I was renting spaces. Years ago, I worked for a charity that rented a spot at the facility. At that time, the dumpsters were available for tenants to use as needed. However, the new owners had placed a small dumpsters are for management only sign on them. Then and now, the dumpsters were mostly empty. I figured they probably wouldn't care about the bed being in the dumpster. If they did, I would just pay for the dumpsters to be emptied. Given the high fees we were paying for the storage of items, it seemed like it would be a drop in the bucket of our moving costs. Throwing the mattress and frames out, I was struck by how much of life really is a waste, and what a shame that is. My mother seemed to be nervous about upsetting the people and the potential costs, 2 things I no longer cared about. When your child dies, you stop being anxious about typical things. The worst has happened. Later that day, when we were moving more furniture to the storage area, the manager stopped us and asked about the bed. My mother immediately burst into tears. She'd make a terrible spy. If it was possible for me to feel worse that day, I did. I turned to my mother, told her I would take care of it, and then walked into the office with the manager. The manager offered to waive the fee for using their dumpster if I wrote them a good review on Google or Yelp. When I got out my phone, I realized I didn't download those apps. Without my iTunes or Google password, I was stuck. My phone offered me the option of resetting my password with a credit card on file. In a stroke of continued bad luck, I had canceled the associated credit card for the day. A replacement wouldn't arrive until later, that very same day. The manager looked at me impatiently. It was as if she'd heard it all before. She folded her arms dramatically. My mind flashed to a scene in The Crown when Queen Mother complained that they killed you with a million little indignities. Then my mind went to the appropriate shame at being so narcissistic that I would compare my life's little hassles with that of the Queen Mother's. I pulled out my angry cat wallet and told the manager I would just pay for the dumpster to be emptied. In doing so, a laminated fingerprint card fell out. The manager realized aloud that I was the woman who'd been crying about my dead daughter in her office, and that it was my daughter's bed that I'd just thrown out. She immediately told me that I needed not to do the review or to pay. I insisted that I would write a review when I went home to pick up the next load, and I did. I didn't write in the review that being at the storage unit was like feeling that stabbing pain in my heart vibrate through my entire body. While giving them the maximum number of stars, I found myself wondering how many other reviews were based on coercion. I then wondered why I never contemplated the stick when trying to motivate other people to do things. Then I remembered that I don't have any power, so I only have the carrot to motivate people with. Since that day, the manager has been greeting me and opening the garage doors for me whenever I bring more things over. I still cry in her office every time I need to do something like buy more boxes or update my credit card information. The last time she saw me, she said, "There's just no end to it, is there?" I concurred. It certainly feels that way. Day 49. I have hesitated to go into great detail about my work because a gal's gotta eat, but I need to share this. The company is in a period of transition, and my prompt return was critical. While it is nice to be distracted from Constance's death, a dinosaur couldn't distract me at this point. Since my return to work, my duties have involved contacting hundreds of people's heirs. To do that, I first have to find and read their obituaries. Then I have to find and read the obituaries of their spouses and children. I provide this data and references to our attorney along with cross-reference public records, addresses of their heirs, etc. Then I prepare and send heirs personalized letters with information about the company, photos of their grandparents or other relative I've pulled from our archives. The photos are usually of them looking dashing in formal events or volunteering in the community in dapper business attire. The intense attention to detail that I have to pay hundreds, seemingly thousands, of obituaries is a special kind of torment, terrible torture. It is easier to stop myself from bawling my eyes out in public places, so I work from restaurants primarily. Still, I need frequent breaks. My personal return on investment in this job is completely inverted. I spend $100 eating and drinking just to get through my workday. Of course, I would rather not do this project, but there's no one else who can do it, so I'm pushing myself day after day. It's terrible. It's traumatic. All the ones I'm researching are the lucky ones that lived long, successful lives. They had siblings, children, and grandchildren. They had colleagues that wrote long, admiring quotes of affection. Their partners were described as lifelong soulmates, and so on. I can't stop asking myself why Constance didn't get any of these things. Things like an adulthood, a career, a family of her own. Constance won't go to a sleepover or tell secrets to her friends. She won't graduate high school or go to prom. She'll never have a crush or be someone else's. She won't move into an apartment that she thinks is great, but I prefer would have a doorman. She won't learn to drive or take the L to a random neighborhood for a leisurely lunch. She won't win Employee of the Month or feel the joy of quitting a bad job. She will never experience a French kiss or romantic love. Constance was robbed of her future. I'm heartbroken, and I'm furious at the inconceivable injustice. Day 50. A national charity, Cyberattack, is dedicating a room at each of their 3 facilities and all future facilities to Constance's memory. This honor is a reflection of the exceptional generosity of Constance's friends and family and the great love the organization's leadership has for Constance, or had for Constance. A few weeks before Constance passed, I took her to an open house at their main office. She was so excited to see the cupcakes that she kept yelling, "It's a party! It's a cake party!" When I tried to shush her, she continued, "But it's a cake party!" 2 board members standing by us told us it was okay for her to shout with joy. Her favorite thing about going to their office was their sensory-friendly break room, which included an adult swing. She loved it so much that 2 years ago, the organization's director and founder bought her one for our home. It is this sensory-friendly room that will be dedicated to Constance's memory. Writing the dedication plaque was like writing her epitaph. Being cremated, she will never have a tombstone. This was her marker. My mind rolled through all the epitaphs of lives she'd never had. My mind fluttered to all the occupations she would have excelled at: chocolatier, lifeguard, artist, the infinite future lives she was robbed of. The years of joy and adventures, big and small. Then, selfishly, I thought of all the things I was going to get to see her do, including the satisfaction of growing old, knowing she is happy, healthy, and living a full life that will continue after me. I thought of all these things and cried and cried and cried and cried and cried. Eventually, the nonprofit's executive director, board chair, Constance's dad, and I agreed to the following text. Dedicated to the memory of Constance Jervis Mariahana, daughter of Mark Mariahana and Rachelle Jervis, in loving memory of her joyful spirit, boundless energy, and persistence in overcoming challenges to live a short but full life.
Copyright, Want My Baby Back LLC, all rights reserved. The author does not authorize, scan, use, buy, or upload to artificial intelligence of any kind. Any depiction or representation of this or Constance's story will be met with all available legal remedies. In the immortal words of Snoop, don't start no, won't be no.